It's Sunday, April 23rd. The weather is nice, but the pollen is high. It's a new episode of the Alumni Brunch Club, and we've got a spicy topic today. Grab your drink and tap in. Tennille, let's go. Hey, y'all. Welcome to ABC, Alumni Brunch Club, a live interactive podcast with overflowing mimosas, hot topics, cultural moments, and Black achievements. Plus, the homecoming vibe is 365. Woo, woo. How y'all doing?
Y'all were kind of slow today with that 365.
I feel like you kind of let it slow.
No, I said three first.
Okay. Hey,
yeah, and then you waited
energy.
for the six.
Hey, energy. Hey, y'all.
I'm excited about today's episode because we are shaking the spice rack with our PWI friends. And I just want to get them on the stage ASAP.
Because they were on time.
But they were on time.
Every last one of them.
Quite on time. But we got to tell people who we are first. Cindy was like, get to it.
Let's get to the guests.
I'm Taria, class of 2004 from Clark Atlanta University.
And I'm Tennille, class of 2006 from Clark Atlanta University. And I will add today, class of 2008 from the Medill School of Journalism of Northwestern University.
Oh, hint.
Somebody brand new today.
She is.
I just added a little.
You got 1 foot over here and 1 foot over there.
Whoa.
Already playing the fence. Okay. Anyway, I'm Brittany Grooms, class of 2007 from Clark Atlanta University. Period.
All right, let's get to the guests. Bring it to the stage, Dan Willis. Class.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good morning.
Fantastic. Happy to be here.
In short, Dan is a TV writer and director from Chicago. Shout out Chicago, representing.
Oh gosh, I didn't think about that part.
University of Missouri, class of 08. Okay. Also known as Mizzou.
Yes. And I also went to the world's best school of journalism, University of Missouri, as well.
Wow.
Chose violence. He chose violence.
Shots fired.
In which list is this journalism list?
I
is it
feel
the
like
one that you wrote?
Just choose a list. First ever school of journalism, top ranked school of journalism. You know, it goes on and on. But go ahead.
Oh boy.
I tried to bring us together with Chicago, but I see where we're going. So next on the stage, Dr. Jamila Young in the building. Chicago represented today.
It's too much.
Dr. Young is an accomplished, licensed clinical psychologist, speaker, educator. She received her BA in psychology from Emory University in Atlanta and her PhD from Loyola University.
Chicago, PWIs everywhere.
Okay.
Good morning. Happy to be here, guys.
Good morning. We're happy to have you.
And last but not least, we have Will Tucker, also known as Tuck.
There you go.
Why not?
With one second in. It only took 1 second.
Will is a senior digital strategist, but he went to Morehouse College, class of 07, Vermont Law, class of 12, Yale University, class of 14. Like the resume, you're not playing around.
Degrees.
Look, that's what they instill in us at NHBCU, that you just need to keep going and get as educated as you possibly can.
We up.
But I'm glad to be here. I'm happy to be here. Excited to discuss.
Give it to us, Will. Okay, y'all.
We're gonna go ahead to Throwback 2. And today's Throwback 2 is, what's an undergrad campus ritual that you miss?
That we miss Or
That you
that we
missed.
missed.
that you miss right now?
Fried chicken Wednesdays.
Ooh.
No, not at Morehouse.
Not at Morehouse.
Oh, at
Well,
our
no,
respective
yeah, I say
PWIs.
both. I mean,
I think it speaks to volumes that he chose that answer to respond.
Just saying.
It does.
Did y'all have fried chicken Wednesdays? Probably not, right?
Yeah.
No.
What they doing that
Not,
again?
not at all. Not even close.
It would have been a problem if they did.
Yeah, it would have been. That's weird. Come on. What?
I'm not thinking of
miss-
anything like that.
There were
Damn, all these traditions that.
But not like a weekly
but they
tradition.
weren't our traditions. So I wasn't leaning into like their traditions. I mean, I guess like the Black graduation or things like that.
Wait,
what's that?
Wait, there's a whole Black graduation?
Oh yeah, Madupe Dio. There's a Black grad.
Say that one more time.
Madupe Dio. Don't ask me what that translates to. But it's the Black it's the Black graduation. There's a step show that I can't remember the title of it, but there was a step show every year. Anything that leaned Black, I think maybe I missed those things. But there weren't many.
The same for me. We used to have these events at the Black Culture Center all the time. So this was like basically the Black Student Union on campus. And the cool thing about them was like whenever there was some kind of panel discussion, it was academic, it was professional, it was social, whatever, they will always have a soul food dinner at the end. So all of us, whether we were interested in going to the thing or not, we would always at least show up by the end so we could eat for free. So that was a definite tradition. Anytime there was any kind of speech or public gathering, there was going to be a soul food dinner at the Black Student Union.
Wow.
How was the food?
The food was good because it came from like locals. So it was like you
good.
go to a local soul food spot, order up a bunch of food, bring it in.
Did it right.
It's probably the organizations probably had like more money to do those type things because you were definitely getting cookies and punch at the Alpha Pie.
You were. And not good cookies either. Like grandma cookies.
Don't hate on them butter cookies, okay?
Those grandma cookies. They were not good.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
Okay. So all the traditions were Black traditions at the PWI.
That resonated with us.
With y'all.
Sounds like.
Well,
Not the university.
Well, no, I like those too. So at the beginning of every school year at Mizzou, we had these kind of big columns on our quadrangle. And the tradition is that, you know, as you come in as a freshman, you walk through the columns, entering the university kind of as a metaphor or whatever. And then you walk back out through the columns after you graduate. So stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a bunch of things you had to do before you graduated. So you had to climb to the top of the main administrative building, or you had to sneak onto the football field and run to the 50-yard line and do all this. So those were the broader things that most Black people did not do, to be honest with you.
Right. Y'all didn't want to get arrested.
That sounds Caucasian.
Well, I got caught climbing the building.
Oh, Daniel.
With 10 white people, so they let us go.
Okay.
Oh, you was with the whites. Good. Protection.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh. That's good.
We just had Olive Branch to enter us into college.
Oh, yeah.
Wait,
I'm trying to move. Sorry.
Tennille, slow down. Tennille.
You got somewhere to go.
This is in a hurry. Slow down. I have a question though. Do you have to avoid the columns the whole 4 years you're there, or 4+, whatever? But like, do you have to avoid the columns?
No, it's not as crazy as
You
that.
walking back and forth.
I feel like I
would have avoided.
I feel like I would avoid the columns.
Yeah, I would have.
I see that. But it's usually like a big group. So the entire freshman class, 5,000 people, all walk through together.
Okay. That's their Olive Branch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, Tennille. It's time. Okay. All right. Get into the meat of the show. What's on the menu today? And let's just start with the basics. You know, we'll build our way up. What is a PWI and why did you choose it?
Let's go with Dan. He seems like the cheerleader for the PWI.
I'm glad you said that. I am definitely not a cheerleader for PWIs as a concept. I didn't even know the term PWI until after I was out of college, because I feel like we talked about this a different way, 20 years ago, whatever it was. I'm an advocate for the University of Missouri because I went there. And I had an experience there, and I met some of the best people I've ever known there. I'm not advocating anyone go to a PWI generally, but if there is a school that you like that happens to also be a PWI, then great. But what it is just a school that's, I think it stands for predominantly white institution. So it's like every other school that's not a HBCU or like a yeshiva, I guess. So it's just whatever the American just prototype for American schools is. I would call that a PWI.
Why did you choose it?
Why did I choose it? Strictly academics. I went to Kenwood Academy, Southside Chicago, and I was, in
that tracks.
journalism at the time. I was the editor of the school newspaper as well.
Okay.
But no, seriously, I was thinking about what are the best journalism schools in the country. And so, of course, right down the street, we have Northwestern, Mizzou as well. Great journalism history. I consulted with people. It turns out, I didn't know this at the time, Mizzou was making a strategic effort to recruit Black students in Chicago specifically, other big cities around the country. So there was a presence in my high school. There was a Mizzou recruiter who came to my high school on a regular basis. So I just picked it because I was convinced that was the best school of journalism, with really nothing else in mind.
That kind of tracks because I'm, graduated from Morgan Park High School on the south side of Chicago. And I do remember, like, during my era, a number of people going to Mizzou, like, choosing. So I didn't think about it like that effort. There was an effort there.
They were paying us to go, basically. Like, I showed her my transcript. She says, not only will you get in, but you'll get a scholarship and we'll waive your out-of-state tuition. So my decision was made. I was done thinking about college in September of my senior year. It was already done.
Wow. You didn't apply to any other schools?
I applied to our state school, University of Illinois. I did think about Howard. Howard was the only HBCU that I knew of that had a journalism program of renown. I knew they had a good one because my friend was a year ahead of me and he went to that school. I had the perception that Howard was very expensive. I didn't do any research, but from what I had been hearing from people and what I knew about my friend who was at Hampton as well, it's like, this is a very expensive place to go. And I didn't have money and I didn't know of scholarships, and the white people gave me scholarships. So I went to the white school.
My question for Tuck is, you graduated from Morehouse, but did you know, like, I'm choosing an HBCU as an undergrad, for undergrad, and I know I'm going to go to a PWI for grad, or how did?
No, that's not at all how it went. Actually, I wanted to go to the University of Georgia when I graduated high school. I went to when I moved to Georgia, my parents placed me in a private school where I was one of very few Black students. And so all of my friends were going to the University of Georgia. I wanted to go desperately badly. And one day the recruiter came to school and got me out of class and said, we'd like for you to apply to Morehouse and we'll give you a fee waiver. I went home and I told my grandparents and they said, well, that's where you were going anyways.
They hadn't told you yet.
Yeah.
They hadn't told me yet. It turns out, however, that after my grandmother passed, I found some letters from the University of Georgia that she'd been hiding from me. So they'd accepted me and everything. They were also recruiting me, but she wouldn't allow me to see them, and I appreciate her for that. Because Morehouse was where I needed to be. I needed that experience, and I needed to be a part of that community.
Was it Morehouse or was it an HBCU that she wanted to? Was it specifically Morehouse that she wanted for you, or just? It was
Morehouse.
Okay, and why?
My uncle had gone to Morehouse. My cousin had gone to Morehouse. We would go to the Christmas concert with the Glee Club every year, and I would sit there and be bored. But her goal was to expose me to the culture and just hope that I would pick up on something that would make me, that would draw me into the school. So Morehouse was the school for her. She went to Savannah State, so obviously she would have been happy if I had gone there, but she wanted me to go to Morehouse.
I wonder if Grandma knew that recruiter. Like if she's
That's a good question.
I was like,
Good question.
he's in English from this time to this time.
I was in English, actually. That's funny you say that. I thought I was in trouble. They said, William, you need to get out of class. I thought I had done something again.
Grandma set that all the way up, okay?
She did.
You think for sure she didn't send that recruiter straight to you? She set that all the way up. Jamila?
So like Dan, I'd like to provide a disclaimer that I am not a proponent. No, I'm not a proponent.
Oh, I thought you were shouting out your high school. Okay.
Well, that's coming.
Okay.
Buckle up, Buttercup. So I'm not encouraging people to attend PWIs, and that's not how I chose my undergrad or my graduate alma maters. I, similarly to Dan, wanted to go to the best school for what I was interested in. So I attended Whitney Young Academy on the west side of Chicago, the top school in the city, in the state, and second or first in the nation. And I knew that it was very likely that I wanted to earn a doctorate degree. I didn't know if I was going to become a medical doctor or a different kind of doctor, but I was on that track. And Emory was churning out doctors. They were, I think, number 4 in the nation and one of the best placements if you wanted to earn a degree as a medical doctor or a doctor of any sort, to be completely honest. And they were in Atlanta. And I had friends who were at the AUC, who were at Clark, at Atlanta, at Morehouse. And my mom had gotten remarried and was in a long distance relationship, and her husband, or soon to be husband, was based in Atlanta. So she relocated to Atlanta the summer before I started undergrad. So it was just a great situation. Not like Dan. I only applied to one school. I applied to the one school, early decision, got in, I was done. And so that's how I chose it. It was really like I knew I wanted to be a doctor. It was in Atlanta, which was a great place. And so that's why I decided to go. It was nothing about PWI. I didn't have a lot of familiarity with HBCUs. So it wasn't an HBCU versus PWI situation for me at all.
Okay. That answered all the questions. That was all in one. We were going to ask, did you know about HBCUs? Did you want to? But
them damn PWIs, I tell you.
Got in there.
Concise.
Succinct.
I'm kind of like Will, though, in that I grew up in an HBCU family. My mother went to HBCU. My uncle, everyone in my family who went to college went to HBCUs. They weren't as evangelical as this current crop of.
That's not fair, because my family, my older family, went to HBCUs and they been hype.
Yeah, same here.
Well, yeah, I guess they were, but my family, it was like, I'm happy you're going to college, and it was I do remember, because I wasn't the brightest, so I wasn't thinking about the culture part. I was just thinking about going to college. So I do, when I think back, remember people saying little slick comments like, you going down there with all those white people, or wouldn't it be like in Missouri or something like that? But I wasn't focused on that. I'm just looking at the brochure every day when I come home from school. It's being excited about being in this place, but not really understanding what I was walking into, to be honest.
Okay. Other than the specific education that you wanted and the specific degree, what's your favorite thing about your PWI? The thing you love the most?
Y'all got some pretty campuses, I will say that.
They do have that. Not in the middle of the hood.
Yeah. And I would say for Emory, the resources, the campus is beautiful. The resources are abundant. And so one of the experiences that I had coming out of undergrad was I went straight to graduate school. And I would meet people who took time off or who spent 5 or 10 years before attending graduate school. And they would always say, how did you know? How did you know going straight through from undergrad that you wanted to go to grad school, that you wanted to go to this specific grad school? And it really had a lot to do with the resources that were afforded to me at Emory. I was able to work in labs. I was able to work with professors. I was able to be a graduate student before I was a graduate student. So I knew exactly what I was walking into going to grad school. I had done this research. I had worked with renowned researchers. I had been in labs. I had done a lot of things. And so that allowed me to set myself up. It set a really good foundation because of the resources that were available to me.
Follow-up question to that though, was that specifically Emory, or do you think that's just the luxuries of a PWI?
You know, it's hard to say because I
Yeah.
attended Emory and Loyola Chicago, and it was different. I was looking for different types of, the resources were already there for graduate school, right? Because they're bringing you in to engage in this thing. I'm remembering going on different like university visits, and I feel like the resources are there and they show up differently at PWIs because the endowments are different. But it's hard for me to say if that was Emory specific or PWI specific.
I'll say a mix between the two. I think the facilities were incredible. I mean, I'm like so attached to all of those places. Like when I go back to school, it's like I did this over here, I did this over here. We had like, I think my freshman year, Sports Illustrated said we had the #1 rec center in the country. Like there was a river inside of our rec center. It was insane.
That's good.
So it's like a beautiful place with all these incredible amenities. It was a small town feel. So it's like you get that, like that community where everything is built around the university. Like everybody in the town works for the university or is relied upon the university for their livelihoods. And then my involvement as well. I was like the person who was involved in everything. So I was a tour guide. I was a summer welcome leader. I did homecoming court. I did everything. And
you were king? You were homecoming king?
Unsuccessfully, I ran.
What was your talent at was there a show?
Wait, did you have like a whole like thing, like a pageant kind of?
Yeah.
No,
I mean, just recreate it for us.
I made it to like the 3rd round, so I didn't really even get to the
okay.
You know, but it was at my school to be nominated for that was a big thing because you had to be nominated by organizations and stuff like that. So that was kind of cool. And then I went on to work for the university a year after that. So I'm kind of like, it seems like an outlier in this group at least, and that I have very positive memories and feelings based on just that whole campus experience and all the people I met there.
And for you, that's special to Mizzou.
Well, that's all I know. My goal coming into this conversation was not to generalize. So I'm not trying to say
he has
all
prepped.
PWIs are good. Most of them are probably trash. I only care about Mizzou, and we have our issues that I hear about every time we pop up in national news as well. So it's not a perfect place. I think generally you can say that many big state schools have a lot of resources, and that provides a certain kind of campus life for sure. A lot of HBCUs seem to be private schools, smaller schools, where you might not have all of these things. But I haven't been to a HBCU campus, so I can't say that.
Excuse us?
I've been to the campus of Tougaloo College. My mother is and it was lovely, I guess.
And
I don't mean to misrepresent.
Right,
like,
and that's it.
I don't want to misrepresent as if I don't have love for Emory. Like I had a great time there, but I joke, and it's a reflection of my truth. I joke that I studied at Emory and I partied at the AUC. And it's really just that I had a unique experience in that coming into Emory, my mom was there, so I had access to a vehicle as a freshman, and all of the connections I had were at the AUC. So I was there often, to the point that Breon thought I was a student at Clark when I was in high school still, because I would come and visit and hang out on campus. You know, my class didn't know I was in their class at Emory because freshman year, I was always off campus. I had a vehicle. I was always at the AU. So it was just, I had a different experience. My connection to Emory already going in wasn't going to be as strong because I already had connections at these other schools. So I studied there. I got my scholastics on, but I didn't spend a lot of time there.
Tuck, you've been on both sides, specifically graduate school, both of them. Like, is there something, pushing Morehouse aside, because we know you're going to ride for Morehouse, but is there something very specific to both of those institutions that you loved and that you miss, or that is like, you know, stands out?
Yeah, for sure. I think I'd echo what they both said, in that resources they're plentiful. A mentor of mine told me before graduate school that I shouldn't be shy about asking for things because money grows on trees at the university. And he wasn't wrong about that. Anything that you needed capital for, if you wrote up a decently legible proposal, you were going to get the cash for it, you know. And we had access to the latest technology in every facet, anything that you could think of, 3D printers and the whole nine, right? So that I thought was always a fantastic thing to have access to. But I also enjoyed the community. And when I say community in this instance, New Haven specifically has a very strong, close-knit Black community that I was able to get connected with relatively quickly. And the school, amongst the graduate students, we also had a pretty good connection amongst Black students. So I appreciated that as well. And so, you know, we would do things like go to church together or go to each other's houses and, you know, watch football on Saturdays and Sundays and just spend time with each other. That made it a bit easier on you with the day-to-day of going to class and looking from your left and right and not necessarily seeing anybody else who looked like you. So for me, I'd say the community that I was able to develop and be a part of is probably the thing that I missed the most or that I appreciated the most about Yale.
You know, to Tuck's point, one of my regrets about grad school is I feel like I approached Northwestern from the Clark Atlanta mindset of they don't have it. Like, if don't ask. And I felt like I didn't ask enough. I just that's truly a regret that I did not ask enough. Like some of our neos who attended Northwestern for grad school, they asked and they received.
Yeah.
And that's my biggest regret. Like totally just blind to, like, have you seen the school's endowment? Like just like ask.
Right.
But it's not going to be a no. They might not be able to do it's. They're going to give you something.
Might be a yes win.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's
or at the very least, they'll point you in the right direction.
Yep.
You know, how can we make this happen? I know someone, and you know, go to this program, go to this building. You'll be able to find the resources that you need.
What's a common misconception about PWIs?
What is
I
a
feel like
misconception?
for me, I think, I don't know. For me, PWIs are pretty much a perfect microcosm for America. Depending on where you go, I went to a state school in the Midwest, so my lived experience was not what I expected. I expected to be surrounded by white people, and I was, but in the same way, I'm surrounded by white people as an American citizen. You know what I mean? So it's like my life, you know, once I found my kind of tribe of Black friends at Mizzou, looked pretty much like my life, like outside of the college context. It's like we hung out together, we ate together. I went to class just like I go to work. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like a experience that was overwhelming in its whiteness, even coming from someone from the South Side of Chicago who spent no time with white people in college. That's the most segregated city in America, probably. And I didn't have a lot of exposure to white communities. So it was supposed to be culture shock for me. But once I found my people, it was like, just like everyday life.
Let's get into some of these comments. Miranda said her brothers went to PWIs and an Ivy League school, Harvard, and the access they had blows me away. Shout out to the Butters. They are here. Shout out to Tuck, J-Dog. Okay.
My friend Grace is in the comments.
I too.
Grace too went to a all right.
I too went to a PWI.
Don't let her fool you. She's from St. Louis. She ain't that proper.
Oh, wait a minute.
Any other misconceptions? Any other misconceptions of PWIs?
You know, it's hard for me to say, particularly because I felt like I was on the outside looking in as a graduate student. So many of the conceptions that I held prior to joining, I still hold. You know, it was a really white place. The school was. They engaged in a lot of quasi and overtly racist activities, and what I mean by that is like the level of takeover in the community that was happening on a day-to-day basis was overwhelming. The street that Yale sits on that separates it from the Blackest community in the town is called Division Street. Yale's responsible for building a hospital in the middle of town, for which they constructed a highway that essentially served to redline the university and
Ooh.
a Black community on the other side. So I mean, it's steeped in this history that you cannot ignore it. There are buildings that are named after slaveholders, like in many places, right? So again, a number of the conceptions that I hold, I wouldn't consider them misconceptions because I still hold them, and I didn't find any information that would lead me to believe the contrary.
Yeah, I think that's what I was struggling with over here. Like, I don't know that my conceptions are misconceptions. I think they're pretty accurate. Maybe it's a misconception that you absolutely cannot find a community at a PWI. I'm not going to blanket and say that you can, but I think that with effort, you can likely. I think at any university, right, it's a different experience and you can likely find some community. So maybe that's a misconception, but I completely reiterate and piggyback off what Tuck was saying, that, there's a lot in the history. There's a lot, these are institutions that are built on white supremacy at the time, right? And so like a lot of it is still flowing through the veins, and that it's there. And so I wouldn't say that it's a misconception. Like it's there.
For me, Tuck, you mentioned that in high school you were one of few Black people. Did it remind you of those times in the South? Did it remind you of those times where you're not shocked?
Yeah, so I wasn't shocked. It didn't remind me as much though, because the South was very different in the sense that like the kids I was going to school with, they were rich and white, but they were definitely racist. When I went to school though, I was surrounded by a lot of people from a lot of different places, and I would consider them to be relatively like far more intellectually capable than my high school classmates. So they had, just a more diverse mindset about how to approach life. So I was able to forge relationships that I feel like were a bit more, that had a bit more strength to them, if you will, because folks were just more open-minded, Yeah.
And Jamila, I'm assuming that being from Chicago, because it's so segregated, but you also had your HBCU connection already. Yours wasn't culture shock either?
It was not. I went to, my high school was pretty diverse. So I was, used to being around a lot of different types of people in academic settings at that point. Before high school, it was not diverse. It was blackity, black. So it wasn't that much of a shock. And I think maybe subconsciously on some level, like my soul knew that it needed that strong connection to the AUC. Like I didn't even really sit at Emory for very long before I was over at the Atlanta University Center. So that may have been the ancestors, whispering to me that like, you need to make connections here to survive here. Yeah, like it may have been like I needed to make the connections with my community to survive the Emory community in some ways. I don't know, but it didn't feel like a shock. Like, they gonna do what they gonna do, and we know this.
You bring up an interesting point for me, if I can. I've seen this with other friends. I have a friend who went to Vanderbilt who spent a lot of time at Tennessee State because it's right there. And it's like we're at Emory and the AUC was right there. I feel like, given that opportunity, I could totally see that. You know what I mean? It's like if you have this kind of already built community of Black people, it's going to be a party every weekend, and it's going to be something, and you're welcome at those things. It's like my experience is so different. It's because you're like, when you go to a state school in the middle of there's nothing else. It's like
there's nothing else.
Kansas City is 2 hours away. Yeah, I went there on the weekends with my friends and we hung out, and I learned a little bit about where they were from and all those things. But you're there. You're siloed in this place. So there's that. There wasn't an opportunity for that. And then I think like the size of your school matters too. Mizzou has 30,000 people. We make up a very small percentage of that, probably 5 or 6%. That's still 1,500 people. So that's 1,500 Black people. That's more Black people that went to my high school, all in the same place, living within 5 miles of each other. So it was really easy to find Black people in a very specific circumstance like that.
Dan, was racism a part? Because I don't know if that's a conception that I mean, going to an HBCU, like we kind of avoided that for those 4 years. You kind of avoided the white people and the racism and that thing.
Right.
My misconception or conception of a PWI is that you can't really avoid it anywhere. And judging by Tuck and Jamila's, like, Dan, was the racism a thing, or did you
I think there's racism wherever there are white people.
that part?
So, that's how racism works, It's like if there are white people around, there's going to be racism. That's not to say that all white people are racist. I don't want anybody to get the wrong impression.
But unconscious bias, we don't need to. We know it's real.
We know. This is our conversation. So that's just the reality. I was very lucky. I did not experience like explicit racism. The term microaggression didn't exist in the early 2000s. So that was just people being jerks, So it's like it wasn't an everyday reality for me. I remember one incident that kind of started a little movement on campus where it's like, there was a kind of picketing and marching. I think we wanted to change the name of a building or something like that. So it was that kind of collegiate, energy where everyone's trying to make a change and do things like that. We had some issues with the police. I feel like I had issues with the police in Chicago. So it was like, it didn't feel like totally different than what I expected as a Black person living in America. Now it's gotten worse. I feel like I'll say this. I feel in the last 10 years, we've seen multiple incidents at my school in particular.
Didn't the NAACP tell Black people not to go to Missouri a few years ago?
We've had some big national news stories.
Right.
The state of Missouri is a red state. It is a very racist place. So that's always going to be the case. What I've seen that's encouraged me is like when you go into a space like that is not designed for you, it's designed for someone else, just like the United States. You have to learn how to show resistance. You have to learn how to advocate for yourself. You have to learn how to pursue justice. And I've seen the kids being faced with racism learn that skill at 18 and 19 and 20. And I think that's going to serve them well.
Yeah. I was going to say too. Oh, sorry, Brittany.
No, you go.
I was going to piggyback. I think to Dan's point, even though we were in the South, on campus, it was more microaggressions. It wasn't this overt racism with me specifically. I'm not going to speak for other students at Emory. Black students specifically may have had other experiences, but my experiences with it were very microaggression. If you weren't paying attention, you might miss it. I wrote my dissertation on microaggression, so I was already, my antennas were. So
you're
it's like Dan, like Dan, I came into the space kind of already expecting the bullshit. Like, okay, I know it's gonna come. I'm not sure what it's gonna look like. It's gonna be cloaked in different things. I might get it from professors, and you see it and it looks different in different ways. I've experienced more of it, honestly, in Chicago when I went back for grad school. And I don't know if it was the thing at Emory. Emory's a very wealthy place. Like students, the kids come and they are from wealth, like astronomical means. And so like, they're not threatened by this little Black girl, like this little Black girl who doesn't look like she comes from these same means. But then I felt like when you get to a place where we're more leveled SES wise, and I'm more on your plane in that regard, then I feel like it felt a little bit stronger. They needed to differentiate me a little bit more from them. And so the racism looked a little more overt from my experience in grad school versus undergrad.
The comments are popping and I'm enjoying them. Okay, we got some questions in the comments too.
Let's go back with Grace. She same thing. She didn't really think to ask about stuff during school, but Sir Dan, it was a strong bond. Stay close. Busy. Homecoming was rigged. Dan should have won.
Agreed.
I agree too.
I'm not sure who Big Laddie is, but
you can't read everybody's comments now. Come on.
No. Wait, there's one comment.
Sneaky suspicion that
I did.
Brandon.
I did too. I thought that was the same person.
My spouse.
But Grace said something that's my thing. Grace said she was one of the only 3 Black people in a lecture hall full of 500. That is what gives me so much anxiety.
Yeah, same.
And that's how I picture PWIs. That is so
That's what your freshman year is going to look like for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Really?
In our like Psych 1000 class, it was exactly
Yeah, that's
Biology
exactly what you're walking
class.
into.
It's exactly that. And I feel like you have to overcome that in terms of volume, and you have to overcome that. That's the starkest reminder of what the reality of what you're into is. Like taking a photo. I've seen photos of the rooms, and it's like just a sea of white with a couple Black people.
And that's why HBCU was the only way for me. That freaked me out. That was why that was the only school I was going.
What were you concerned about? What freaks you out about that?
Because that was high school for me. I wanted no parts of that anymore.
Yep.
Gotcha.
I was the one in the 30. I wanted no parts of that anymore. Every atmosphere that I was in high school, if I wasn't like doing like things with specifically with my Black friends, like most educational things and classes and things of that nature, I was the only Black girl. I was used to that. It was a way of life, and I did not want that way of life anymore. So it was very much so HBCU.
That makes a lot of sense.
I just realized this spells out Tuckarooskie.
Yeah, I did.
It does.
Yeah,
It does.
The whole question.
I knew who asked the question as soon as I saw that.
He named himself the correspondent.
I saw that too.
Yeah.
A good friend Parquet.
Coming from an HBCU to a PWI, was there a noticeable gap in the education level exposure at Morehouse and what was expected of you at Yale? Ooh.
So I think that the
expectations. Parquet, the correspondent.
Yeah, don't forget that part.
The interesting thing is that at Morehouse, the expectation was explicit. Every day it was stated what was expected of you. When you walked into class, your professors would make it clear that you were expected to meet this level, hit this target, achieve, we have Crown Forum and things of that sort that are also geared toward reminding you of the crown that exists, that sits above your head, and walking through the halls of the African American Hall of Fame and seeing these alumni who have done amazing things. It's instilled in you what the expectation is of you, right? At Yale, however, it wasn't explicit. It was, you're here, clearly you're going to do great things. You're supposed to be here, right? If you weren't supposed to be here, they wouldn't have let you in. So, that you're going to graduate. If you don't graduate, that's an indictment on our university. So just, if you need help, come to us because we'll make sure that you get out of here by hook or by crook. It will happen. The whole, again, the expectation was it was more of an implicit sort of thing where everyone knew or thought that you were supposed to be there because you were there to begin with.
Okay. If given the opportunity, would you have made a different decision? Would you have gone to HBCU or stuck with what you got?
That's a no. Moving on.
I think
Jamila might be a yes. I don't know.
Yeah,
She
hesitated.
Might be a yes.
I'm not a yes. I have the great experience of having gone to PWI and having access to the AUC, and my husband is a proud Morehouse grad, and I have a lot of connections, and so it's a hard thing for me because I really believe that Emory created the psychologist that I am. Like they laid the foundation, who I am, my career, my critical thinking skills, my intellectual acuity, like those things were honed there. So it's hard for me to say that I would make a different decision, but I have to acknowledge that the networks, the relationships that I have, even professionally, like Tuck that works on my website. Like those are connections that I have through Brandon as a HBC grad. So that's why I made that face too. Like, it's like, I have these two worlds that have merged for me that I get so much from, but it's hard for me to say that I would relinquish Emory in that experience. I don't know. It's hard. Maybe I wouldn't. I don't think I would.
I'm the same. I feel like to say that would be to deny the experience and the relationships that I have to this day, which are so valuable to me. And I am a person who believes like I became a full person at the University of Missouri. And that's not because it was a PWI. It's just because, I happened to be there at that time.
During those times.
And be with those people. So it's like, for that reason, I can't say. Now, do I see some upside? I was like, yeah, I can see some upside of what it would have been like if I would have gone to Howard, or if I would have gone to Morehouse or whatever it is, but I wouldn't change a thing.
The comments are lit.
Comments are lit.
I love it.
There's another correspondent in there I saw that had a question, which is a good one. Would you send your kids to an HBCU? Oh God. Oh God. Jamila, get your people. Get your people. Are you going to send your kids to an HBCU versus PWI?
I want Brittany to answer that question. She had an answer not too long ago.
I did. I mean, look, I want to pay for HBCU. I want my children to have that experience. Clark Atlanta was the best 4 years ever. Like, and you know, culturally, I just think it was pivotal. Just like, I mean, but y'all just said it was pivotal in who you are and made you what you are too. But yeah, I want to pay for HBCUs over here. But I mean, you know,
we have this argument in my house about athletes. If we have a kid that is dominating athletically, are we supporting?
Are you sending him to a division?
HBCU? And so
Division 3
I'm like, well, if he gonna put me up when I can retire early, I don't know.
Oh boy.
You know, I really think it has a lot to do. Well, let me backdrop that by saying Brandon for sure wants these boys. I have 2 sons. He wants them to attend Morehouse. He wants them to become side chapter Omega. Okay, that is what he wants. I do think personally, I want to see who they are. You know, I think for me, Emory was a great fit for me. I happen to know what I wanted to do at 17, 18, which is not generally the case, that people feel like they know and they follow through with that. And so I kind of want to see who they are and the best fit for them. I think, Brittany, you made a comment that I'm not going to get on a soapbox. I can from a psychological perspective, but what it's like being one of the only and very pivotal developmental years of your life, right? And so if my sons end up going to the best schools in LA, they're going to be surrounded by white men. And so I could really value a Morehouse experience for them if that's where they're coming from. But like Taria, I also kind of want to see who they are. What are their gifts? What are their talents? And can these talents be honed at this place? Is this the best placement for them given that? So I think we're leaning Morehouse, not HBCU, but specifically Morehouse. I do think Brandon would love for them to land HBCU if it weren't Morehouse. But I think for me, it's going to be about best fit.
Yeah, my son knows that he's expected to go to Morehouse.
Your son is like 3 months, Tuck.
He's aware.
He's 6 on Wednesday. 6 months on Wednesday.
Don't short that baby. He's 6 months on Wednesday.
But both my wife and I, right. Both my wife and I had similar experiences. She went to Spelman, and we both went to PWIs for graduate school. And I've seen so many folks be able to not leverage their HBCU experience, but have the HBCU experience and then leverage the benefits that PWIs can bring to you in graduate school and just do a series of amazing things with their HBCU degrees. And I don't think that I would place any sort of limitations on what we're capable of. And oftentimes I think that that's why folks will choose a PWI, because they don't think that you can, not the folks on this panel, obviously, but they don't think that you can, be that doctor or be that journalist or whatever it is that you want to achieve. They don't really see themselves doing it from the platform of an HBCU. And in our household, that's not the case at all. So we think our goal is HBCU for undergrad. And then if you want some sort of graduate degree, if you want that on your resume, then sure, go there for graduate school and make it happen in that cadence.
That makes sense.
Someone commented to that experience going to HBCU for undergrad, doing PWI.
Yep.
So
it worked perfectly for both my wife and I.
Yeah. That's that to me. If I had wanted to pursue higher education, that's probably. But I was done after that. Right. But that seems like a nice balance, because you do still.
And I want to also echo. I want to echo what Tuck said too about people being of the misconception that at an HBCU you can't produce these higher level degrees or accomplishments or accolades, right? Like I went to PWI, I got my education there, and that was a foundation. But my network now are people who attended HBCUs, and so clearly they are accomplished because they are part of my professional network.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like that reveals, if you believe that you can't be as successful if you go to a HBCU, that reveals a larger problem.
It does. It does. Agree.
That sounds like self-hatred to me.
Yeah, they
So
probably don't want you
I
there.
think anybody who feels like that needs to investigate why they feel that way.
Look inward.
For me, I keep saying it. It's like I'm not an advocate for PWIs. I'm an advocate for Mizzou. So I want my future kid, to go to Mizzou if it makes sense for them.
Right.
I don't feel strongly about any other school, black or white. So if they want to go, of course, my affection secondhand for Clark Atlanta University.
Thank you.
Say it a little louder, Dan.
Right.
That goes without saying.
Okay.
So if those two schools aren't the school for them, then as long as they're going to school and they can figure out a way to pay for it themselves, it's great.
Okay. Black Student Union. It has been said, I have heard the comment, I'm not going to say who said it, was that the Black Student Union at their school was probably as large as my HBCU. And so I want to talk about Black Student Union a little bit and what that
person was me,
like.
And I was triggered when I said that. You can unpack it all the way if you want to, because I feel like we need to talk about the conversation about the conversation. But yeah, we can get there.
Can we talk about that though? Because I have a very specific experience with the BSU at Mizzou.
Oh, okay.
That actually sent me further on my path to HBCU.
Oh, okay.
This does not surprise me. But go ahead.
I am from Kansas City, and so we did college visits at
I didn't know about this. Okay, so this is a closer connection. All right.
And a young lady was my tour guide for the day, her and her roommate, and we got on campus. Already the air was full of just like, I don't want to be here. Like, this is just not this. I don't feel anything. And so she was looking for some other people to introduce me to, some other Black people. And she could not find anybody. Like, there was no one around on campus, nothing. And so she was like, well, let's go to the BSU. That's where we always hang out. We'll find somebody there. And I was just like, you mean you have to go to a place to find other Black? Like, there's nobody on this campus that you can just come over and we can talk to? Like, it was just really triggering. Like, I don't want to do this for 4 years. Like, I have to go to a special place to find other Black people.
It seems like this person just didn't have many friends. So
that's really what it's giving.
Nobody's answering the phone call.
Because the Mizzou Black Student Union are all up and through these comments. They
can come for me if they want to, because I was like, no, thank you.
Hey, they're lame people everywhere you go who don't have friends. So it really don't matter what school it is.
Yeah.
Anybody else on BSU?
No, I'll talk about ours. I mean, we had a place, we call it the Black Culture Center. We had several spaces on campus. So in our kind of like recreational space, this was a little before my time. There was a section of like where we ate that was called the Black Hole. Like, it was literally called the Black Hole, because that's where all the cool Black kids.
Wait, who called it the Black Hole? The school or y'all? Okay.
I was nervous.
They empowered.
That's another thing. If white people say it's a problem, if Black people say it, it's okay. So we had spaces like that. We had a whole Black Culture Center that was named after the first Black students admitted into the university, one of which had to go all the way to the Supreme Court so that Black people could attend the university. That's a pride point for me, but that was another space where we had, our student meetings. We had the Legion of Black Collegians, which was like the political arm of it. We had a gospel choir. We had dance teams. We had 2 dance teams that were kind of rivals. So we had a very vibrant Black life. When I made the joke about our Black student population being larger than some HBCUs, is because, number one, I was triggered at that moment. But then I was like, look, it's like, okay, when comparing schools, it feels like you can't really go hard at people, because I feel like HBCUs are so much of the HBCU identity is about Blackness. And as a Black person, I'm not going to be the Black person who says that anything is white is better than anything that is Black.
That's Black.
So I'm not going to be that person. So I tend to not even engage in like a kind of my school is better
He's
than
so
you
right.
conversation
This is the
because
plight of
it becomes personal. People get heated. So now you're talking about blackness. I'd rather argue with people with Kansas and say Mizzou is better than Kansas, and it's based on sports or campus or something else, and not someone's identity.
Smart.
So I'll just say, as a grad student, I didn't spend a lot of time at the Black Student Union because it's for the undergrads. However, my younger cousin was an undergrad while I was in graduate school, and she seemed to derive a lot of value from the Black Student Union. It was similar to what Dan said, named after the first Black student that was admitted to the university. They always had activities, and it really seemed to create a community that they all were benefiting and thriving from. Because I met a lot of her friends when I was at her wedding a few years ago. The friends I knew she had there, they were at her wedding. So there just seemed to be a lot that it offered and a lot of benefit.
Yeah. I would also say, I think the BSU at Emory, did offer a lot, but like things at Emory, I just wasn't there to take advantage of them.
Your BSU was the
you was on the
ABC.
strip.
She
was on the strip.
It was AUC for your BSU.
Yeah.
So you've had Stiegels.
I do think, I was at Stiegels. I was about to say, it didn't sound as rich as Dan's experience, I would say, but they did have to, they had step teams. As a freshman, you were supposed to come in and it was all the Black students got together. I didn't even participate in that. I was there in the audience. So they were looking at me like, are you? I was like, get at it. You have that. Get to it.
Get at it.
But it was there. It did exist. And I do think that it was a really great landing spot and respite for Black students. I just wasn't in there. I didn't need it. I was at the
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like even with an HBCU in a big city, I don't even know if we took advantage as much as our student center as we compared to HBCUs in smaller towns.
Yeah.
I think they utilized their student centers more than we did in the agency.
There had to be a point for us to go to the student center. Like you were going specifically there for something. It wasn't a hangout. Yeah.
I feel like Black people will always carve out space for ourselves no matter where we are. To this day, you go into a big ballroom at some kind of fancy event, you will often see a cluster of Black people who's like, oh, I don't know this person, but I'm just going to walk up to this group of Black people and start talking because I know there's a familiarity there. And I feel like that's the same at my school and probably at other schools. It's like we're going to find each other. We're going to create a space that's safe for us to be able to say the things we want to say and behave the ways we want to behave outside of the judgment of potentially the wider community. And I feel like that's always going to happen just because that's how we are.
But Dan, you bring up a good point. I'm sorry, Brittany.
No, go ahead.
Being at the HBC, it's one, like you said, Black people, we create space. But I will say, as we all agree, coming from the South side of Chicago, your elementary school experience, it was very Black because of the segregation of the city. But going away to Clark Atlanta at an HBCU, it was like a reminder that we're not a monolith. We had the tree people. We had
it was a culture shock for me.
Just different groups of Blackness, and it makes me wonder whereas in a PWI, it's like you might have hung out with people that maybe if you were in an HBCU setting, you might not have been friends because you were in a PWI setting. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think even if you're a cluster of friends that you found, your community you found at a PWI would have been different if you all had a setting of an HBCU?
I think it would have been richer, but still good. So I'll tell you, my biggest surprise going to college was the diversity amongst Black people.
So
it's like I'm from a particular part of Chicago, particular socioeconomic class. I knew maybe one or two different kinds of Black people, right? Like we all kind of generally the same. You go to Mizzou, you meet Black people who got money. I had never met rich Black people before. I never met Black people from California who kind of move in a different way and are just culturally different. I never spent time with people from the diaspora from all over the world who are coming into this particular. So I feel like at a HBCU, that's even richer, right? Because number one, people are coming specifically because of their identity, And also, I feel like the volume of diversity is probably greater at a HBCU than it is at a PWI.
Okay, hold on. Busy.
Busy's
Busy.
spilling all
Baby
the
girl.
tea.
It's getting
all the
busy.
tea.
You triggering me. Like
Busy, we gotta talk about this because Busy's spilling some tea that I
Busy
feel
is
like
a homie.
I know we had time, but like this is
Are we?
scary.
Oh no.
This is scary.
Yeah.
Cotton balls?
That's
I
crazy.
remember this.
What?
And then and the other one, she said the girl had on blackface.
During the interview, yeah.
Blackface.
How was y'all not fighting all the time? Good Lord.
What?
Not the #1 journalism school.
Hello.
Daniel was coming back to that. She did not like that.
Remember what I said at the very beginning. Wherever there are white people, there will be racism.
That's a fact.
Right.
Listen, I had some situations at Northwestern, so yeah.
This leads me to, I got one final question in this segment is like, did you gain friendships with people outside of the Black people at your schools that have lasted until now, or just Black friends from BSU?
I have one non-Black friend that freshman year, ride or die, through, still my friend. Bridesmaid in her wedding, my homegirl. She's Persian.
That don't count. She
of color. She's not gonna say, but you said not Black.
Yeah, I did say not Black.
I made sure to let you know, she's not of Caucasian, but she is not Black, but that's, but no white friends from undergrad.
Tuck, I'm curious about yours, because are all your friends now still more house friends, or did you carry some others with you?
No, so I happened to, I joined a band when I was in graduate school, and so the guys and the folks in that band were and still are some of my closest friends. However, my closest friends from graduate school went to Dillard, and the other went to Howard. So those are the two guys that I still keep up with to this day. If I'm in San Francisco or New York, I'll give them a call and we'll hang out. And if they're in LA, they'll do the same. But the only other folks that I have outside of that circle are people that I spend a lot of time with at band practice and that kind of thing.
Is your band on Spotify? Can we hear some music?
We're not. We were pre-Spotify, but
you got a CD, a cassette tape. What's up?
It was all live.
Where you gonna play it, Taria?
You had to catch us in the moment. It was all live.
Dan, do you have
Well, my closest friends are 100% Black. I have good relationships. Like, I know there are people I can call. I know whenever I'm in town, I'm going to see them. Are we like trading pictures of our kids? No. It's not that kind of relationship. Those are really, because my closest friends were all Black in college. So I have good relationships. It's a valuable network to me if I need it, I believe. But in terms of like personal friendships, it's all Black.
This is good. Good. Taria?
Where are we going after this, Britt?
we're going to all Black everything after this. You go.
Well, we could sit and talk about this topic all day, but we're switching gears to all Black everything. This is where we toast to something that is amazing that a Black person is doing or achieving in life. We kind of just give kudos to them. And Tennille, we didn't even talk about what we were drinking today, so I hope everyone has water, tea, coffee.
Water.
I drank all of mine.
Water. Okay.
It's 11 a.m. I'm drinking sparkling water.
Okay, well, everyone hold up their water bottles or tea or whatever. We are toasting to the Texas Southern University cheerleaders because they were the first HBCU program to win an NCAA College National Championship in the Cheer Spirit Rally Division. And that is pretty huge. So cheers to them.
Cheers.
Yes, cheers.
Love that. I love that for them. Look, today's show was really, really good. We've been talking about this for a while and didn't know when it was time to bring the others into the conversation. But
Not the others.
I'm on the fence.
I couldn't believe when I got my invite, even though I
that's
know
why
the
you're here. Because you got both.
One foot in, one foot in, one foot out.
We wanted somebody who had both ends of the
I'm
spectrum.
more like
I know
got a
this is
wrist
very,
in, you know.
yeah. But this is very interesting, very enlightening, and I still stand by I love my HBCU, but I'm really happy that you all attended the schools that you went to because it made you who you are and the people that we love and adore right now. And so I've got one thing before we actually wrap up. And I'm gonna switch it up a little bit here. Is normally I ask, have you donated to your school yet today or recently? But I'm gonna ask, have you donated to your HBC or your closest HBCU recently? Dan told me recently that he was sick of getting emails because he has donated to Clark Atlanta University. He's like, why they keep emailing me? I was like, because they want you to donate again. Keep sending those coins over. But have you donated to your HBCU today? If you haven't, please do. That's the reason why we're here. We want to give back to those so they can have the resources that these people have been given. Hello, 3D printers and lakes in the student center or the whatever it is.
A river.
Busy. We get it. We get it.
Busy said,
they will never get another dime out of her.
Busy, I got one for you. Donate to Clark Atlanta, okay? That's where you can send your coins.
I knew what we were going to get from Busy, and I invited her anyway. So
I love it, Busy. I'm happy you're here. And thanks to everyone else who tuned in today. Now let's get into the let out. Where can we follow everybody? What's everybody got going on right now? Talk a little bit. Jump in how you want to because we are running out of time. But thank you, Tennille. It's time for the let out. Jamila, you go first. What are you doing? Where can we find you? How should we keep in touch?
I am just working, working mom, wife.
Yes, changing lives.
I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm out here, healing people, adults specifically, and couples. You can find me on Instagram. I'm at Dr. J, DRJAY84. If you're looking for my professional page, that is Dr. J _LA. So if you want some psychological tidbits, you can find it there. If you want some fun content and some family content, you can find it on my personal page. If I accept you, it's private.
Hello, that part. Tuck.
So you can find me on Instagram at Elgin Jr. I also provide both technical and consultative services in the technical space, building websites, applications, enterprise apps, any of those sorts of things. So if you need any assistance, feel free to hit me up there or tucker@designpartners.com. Willing to discuss any and all projects that are coming your way.
He will transform your business.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Love that. Dan?
I'm just a regular person. I don't have anything to promote. But if you like pictures of my food and possibly funny memes, you can follow me on Instagram at Daniel Willis.
Dan, tell people what you do.
If you want to see Dan's work, just watch
TV.
Turn on the tube.
Yeah, you'll catch an episode that he's directed or written.
It's whatever. It's
oh my God.
It's not fine. You went to the University of Missouri.
Like Grey's Anatomy.
Hello.
Award-winning shows.
Hello. Yeah, award-winning shows. That's what he's out here doing, directing.
That's what happens when you go to the #1 journalism school.
That's right.
Hey, Tuck.
Put back in.
Slow down.
Oh, did you cut him off?
That's right.
Tuck, you almost made it. We almost made it, Tuck.
Right.
We hadn't dropped somebody in a long time. That was good.
You almost made it, Tuck. You almost made it.
Where's the black love?
It was Tennille. Tennille put you out.
You know what? On that note, good day. Goodbye. Wait, but next time we have Alumni Brunch Club, a few of us will have a different last name, and I will end on that note. Congrats, and see you all soon. Have a good.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.